G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and this video is just a bit of a catch-up on what's been happening in my garden. We're into the last month of spring. Pretty soon it's going to be really heating up. Today was 43 degrees, talking about hot. It's been a stinker. That's some kale, the Tuscan kale, and it's a wonderful plant. I'm surprised it's got this far into spring. Really, by the time summer hits, that'll just it'll be punished bad. But we're going to keep eating it as long as we can. Here's some rocket. It's all gone to seed. You know, that's an eggplant there actually. This is a new eggplant. It's a F1. It's called a Thai, and it's got that tiny fruit. I'm going to see how that goes. Eggplant grows okay at this time of year. It does tend to get a little bit too hot, but even though the rocket goes to seed, you can still eat the leaves, and it's still very nice. We've been chewing on that. Here's one of my long beds. I've got the corn at the back there and a bit of space in the middle. If you've seen some of my other videos, you would have seen I had cauliflower growing in the middle there. I've got my turmeric. It's starting to come through. There's a little grub on the end of that one. And these caterpillars have become more prevalent now through end of spring and summer. It gets more and more difficult to grow vegetables here. I've got those Thai eggplants in along the front of the bed, just next to where I had grown some fennel, and at the back I've got a whole bunch of chili plants or hot peppers growing. This is the time of year to really get stuck into chilies and capsicums in my part of the world. They'll really take on and grow quite fast. Come middle of summer, we'll be having plenty of nice hot peppers. There's a couple that have self-seeded that I've just left go on. And that's just some bare bed at the moment. I'm going to be placing some, at the back there is some of those Cuca Melons, or they call them a mouse melon. That was, I got that idea of growing this plant from Rob Bob. Down the other end, just before the corn, I've got peanuts growing, and this is the right time of year for peanuts here in my part of the world. They'll flower and then they'll put a tendril down into the soil. Growing peanuts isn't the easiest thing because you really have to do a lot of weeding. You can't mulch between the plants, and you've got to constantly weed between them because then they put that tendril through, and it's got to be able to get into the soil, bury itself down, and then the peanut is formed. I've got some mini pumpkins there, the jack pumpkins. They're not spot, that's just some seed or pollen from the corn that's fallen down on that. It's not spotted. They're actually growing quite well. They're giving a bit of shade, this corn, to the pumpkins there. I'm hoping that I can get a few small pumpkins out of that. And underneath I'm growing some more of those Cougar Melons, or the Mexican gherkin, or the mouse melon, whatever you want to call it. And they're growing very well underneath the corn. I've got a few seedlings on the go. I've got my Egyptian spinach, which grows really well through summer. I haven't tried it before. Tried it last season and I couldn't get any seed to come up. So I threw more seed in this time, and then they all came up. You know, of course it would. So I've got a heap of those plants. I'll probably only need about 4. I'm growing some popcorn, or the mini corns. You can eat them small. And that's an F1 variety, and out of that whole packet I've only got bloody 2 came up, so that was a disaster. And then I've got a few other hot climate plants like a wing bean and a few other things. As far as fruiting trees go, there's several trees that are fruiting, a lot of stone fruit at the moment, but mainly my mangoes are coming on. I've got about 10 or 12 different mango trees. I like to spread it out because we get hit bad with anthracnose here and black spot. So I'm trying to grow some resistant varieties, like the Namdok Mai and the Glen, and they're not totally resistant, but they're more resistant than, say, Kensington Pride or a Bowen mango. And I just thought I'll grow more trees and keep them manageable rather than letting them get too big, and hopefully that'll work. I've still got a few citrus on the trees. I've still got a whole half a tree full of Valencia Oranges, which is just amazing. It's all right in flower again. That's a Glen mango, and that's about as big as I'm going to let any of these new mangoes go. About, 2.5 meters high will do. There's a Bowen at the back there, or Kensington, and I had to chop that right back because you wouldn't get a mango off that whole tree. So I chopped it right back, and I mean, I was brutal with it, and that got rid of the anthracnose disease out of it, and now it's producing. At the front of the bed, I'm just trying a couple of small tomatoes. At this time of year, you can't grow a big tomato. The sun is just way too harsh, and we've got heaps of fruit fly that attack them anyway. So small tomatoes are the go, and the small tomatoes don't last that long either, but you'll get a good crop out of them, and then they'll perish rather quickly. In the background, if you would have seen some of my other videos, you would have seen of my globe artichoke videos, how to grow a globe artichoke and prepare and eat them. You can see that they've died back now, and even there's a new pup that's forming from the old plant. That's a little bit premature, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how that suffers through the heat, but I've kept a couple go to seed. I've left it flower so that I can have some insurance if the pups all don't make it through and I don't get enough secondary plants to start another season. Well, then I'll just use the seed. And it's too easy. That was a real success. Here I'm trialing several of my. This year I'm going to trial several plants that are good in the heat. This is climbing spinach, a substitute, just like the Egyptian spinach. But the Egyptian spinach is a bush. This is a climbing spinach, and they're both good in the heat. Apparently, this is the first time I've grown this as well. The leaves are very nice. They taste very similar to spinach. Very mild, a little funny. They're quite voluptuous, so a little bit funny on the palate, a little bit slimy. But anyway, we'll see how that goes in salads and cooking. Yes, I've got the larger peppers. I think that's a big red or whatever. I'm not going to let them get much bigger than that, because if I let them start to turn, the fruit fly sniff it and they start stinging it and lay maggots in it. So I'm going to pick them green, which I have been doing, and eating them green. And around that, I've got this West Indian cucumber, which is a magnificent cucumber. I pickle them, and you're best eating them while they're young, otherwise they get very seedy. But it really tolerates the heat beautifully, which other cucumbers won't. So we can get away with growing cucumbers into this time of year, but you really got to be a bit lucky, and it's certainly coming out now. You're not going to get away with it. There's a nice long mild chili. I just grew that from one of the shop varieties to see if I could. It was a nice big long one in the shops, and I thought, look, I'll give it a go, and it actually grew true to type. There's some seeds I'm collecting. Spring onions and lettuce. I just let them dry out. Once I've harvested them, let them dry out a little bit more. I have got some medium-sized tomatoes growing quite well. I'll have to watch them though, because they can become a target to fruit fly once they start to turn. So the smaller ones really are the best. And I've still got the remnants of some cucumbers. I've been pickling a whole heap. I must have harvested 15 to 20 kilos of cucumbers. Amazingly, they haven't been hit by the fruit fly. So I can count my lucky stars for that. But like I said, cucumbers will be a no-no. I wouldn't be able to plant more now. There's just some cherry tomatoes. They're perfect for this environment. Again, the cabbages, this is supposed to be a mini cabbage, and it's bigger than my head. That's getting eaten by bird. That's bird damage, maybe a crow or something else. They're supposed to be minis. I thought I'd just chuck a quick crop in before the season ended, and see if I could get a few plants going before summer, because this is definitely not the time to grow cabbage. But you can see they grew fantastically, so I'm gonna turn that into sauerkraut, a lot of it anyway. There's my beetroot. That you would have seen my earlier videos. You'd see how lush the beetroot grew. Now it's completely decimated in this heat, and they've had it. But if you leave them in the ground, they're going to be still great to pick and harvest, even though they don't look the best. And for the first time, I've been able to grow some good garlic. This is an Australian purple variety, so I'm happy with that. That'll be ready to harvest in a couple of weeks, I hope. And yeah, I'm very happy. The last thing we'll have a look at is my grapevine. Again, earlier this year I did a grapevine video on just how to grow it. Pretty happy with it this year. It's growing vigorous again. I've got about 12 bunches of grapes on it. Some of them aren't the best. They're a little bit sparse, but most of the bunches will turn out just fine. And that's it. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed my little bit of a catch up on what's happening. Bye for now.